Hey everyone, welcome back to the realm. I'm Gina.
I'm Rich. How's everybody doing today?
I'm
And
Rob.
yeah, there we go. It's like, let's keep rolling. We have the whole gang here tonight.
Brian's here.
And then the peanut gallery, Kez.
Done.
We're all here. Uh,
Yay.
we are all here to bring you guys a special episode. We were on hiatus between seasons, just taking a breather, relaxing the first of the year. And then the UFOs had to start showing up. And we're like, we can't let this pass without at least speaking on it. So we wanted to talk to you guys about the most recent UFO sightings. So we've all kind of done our research. So to get started, I'm just going to do a quick synopsis rundown of everything that's happened over the last month, and then we're going to dive into it. Everybody's kind of did some research on this, so we're going to go through all that. So essentially, we started off February with a bang, no pun intended. We had on February 2nd, the balloon that was found to be a Chinese, they were calling it a Chinese spy balloon, but China had said that they were trying to measure weather patterns or whatnot. But that was found coming into the U.S. airspace, and that was shot down once it got over the ocean. So then shortly after that, they started making some, fine tuning NORAD, just fine tuning the radar system that we have here in North America. And for those of you who don't know NORAD, it means North American Aerospace Defense Command. And so that's kind of where, they keep an eye on the skies, and it was tuned in to find or recognize certain things. So after this balloon from China made its way over into our airspace, they decided to tweak it, like I said. So they wanted to be more sensitive to detect things in our airspace, and it became more improved. So from that, fast forward to February 10th, along Alaska's northern coast, there was what's called a UFO or a UAP, an unidentified aerial phenomenon is more what they lean to. It was spotted over Alaska in that airspace, and they had said that it was detrimental to the airspace based on the altitude that it was in. Now, they didn't have any big description over of these objects, other than of this object in particular, other than it was large and it was dangerous to the airspace. So because of that, it was ordered down pretty much immediately. So that was shot down, debris crash landed. And then the very following day, within hours, on February 11th, in central Yukon area of Canada, another UFO or UAP was identified. And the United States and Canada both kind of teamed up at this because of where it was located in the airspace. And that was also determined to be detrimental to the airspace based on its altitude and location and size, which they said was like the size of a small car. And there wasn't much else that they offered in the way of a description. Some of the descriptions was said there was octagonal shape. Some said there was strings that were hanging from it or what looked like strings, but it was different than the balloon that was shot down over the east coast of the United States from China. So it wasn't that. It was described, like I said, octagonal shape, large, and it had no visible propulsion system that they were able to see. So they didn't know how it moved, but they believed it to be unmanned. So they do that on February 11th. So we have February 10th, February 11th, and then February 12th, my birthday, another UFO decides to show up. So this one was over northern Montana. And so when this happened, they actually closed down the airspace in that region of Montana. There were meetings going on. I know the governor of Alaska was on the news and making statements that they were in a meeting that was confidential or top secret or what, protected meeting or whatever. And they were talking about it and that they didn't know what it was. They saw this on the radar. They sent the fighter jets up into the air and they couldn't find it. So it was nighttime. They couldn't find it anywhere. So they called off the search until the next morning. Then they were going to send them back up. At that time, it disappeared from the radar and it wasn't seen in the sky. The next morning, they can't find anything in the sky either. But then later that day, they find it shows up again on the radar in Montana, then kind of disappears. Then it shows up again. Actually, they tracked it from one report that I read over Wisconsin. So it came over our state, and then made its way over into Michigan, where it was shot down in Lake Huron and the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. All of these, from what we know, all had the same description. None of the wreckage was found. And to this day, none of the wreckage has been found, and they've called off the search. Both governments, both the Canadian government and the United States government, have called off the search to continue searching for the wreckage. One of the reasons being cited is saying that they didn't feel that whatever it was worth the extensive search and rescue mission, because his face was not worth.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Wait. So this is just a quick interjection. This is the only one. Do you mean they called off all the searches, or just
all of the searches?
Yeah.
Oh, and they didn't find anything of any.
The only
of
one they
these.
recovered was the Chinese balloon. They got that
Yes,
one.
the
other ones they didn't.
They called some of it off because of weather.
Yeah.
But yes.
Let's be honest
Sounds
though.
legit. Sounds
Things
so
were
legit.
shot out of the sky by
I saw
a
that
military
somewhere.
jet. There's probably nothing left of them anyway.
Yeah.
They're probably obliterated, and they're probably in small pieces wherever they are. So there's not anything to find, I don't think. It's not like they shot like in a cartoon where they shot the little string and the whole thing fell down. They just hit it and gone. So
part of it was weather, and the other part of was the location or the territory that it went down
the
in.
Yukon. Yeah.
They couldn't get to that area to find it. So I have a lot more on this, but that's just the synopsis. And I just want to kind of open it up to you guys. So whoever wants to go first, fire away.
Can I light this up?
You light it
Light
up.
it up.
All right, Rich. So
okay.
I feel like Kez is thinking the same thing as me. I don't believe any of it. So I'm going to Tarantino the whole thing and start with the end. None of us know if it's UFOs or what it actually is, but
it's not UFOs.
I know we're being lied to. That's the number one thing. Whatever they're telling us isn't what actually is going on. So interesting what you said, Rich, about there's probably nothing left of it. Per the New York Times, for that very first one that they shot down over Alaska.
Okay, so we're not talking about the first Chinese balloon. We're talking now. We're talking about these other three that showed up right in a row.
Yep, I'm only focused on the
So on February 10th, the one that got shot down over Alaska.
Yep.
I'm going off of a New York Times article that gave a timeline of the whole thing.
Okay.
According to them and to the DOD, so the Department of Defense, their spokesperson came out after that one was shot down and said it broke into pieces and it was not a balloon. That was their initial reporting that the DOD said for the one shot down over Alaska. So if they're saying it broke into pieces and they were attempting to look for it, they also said that the reason why they shot it down over Alaska where they did once it got over land is because it would be easier to recover it that way instead of shooting it down over the water.
Okay.
So all those things can't be true because you just don't give up the search. If they thought that it was from, let's say, China, they would still be searching for it. They wouldn't go, it's too hard, so forget about it. I don't buy that at all.
Okay, well, I have some information on the one over Alaska as well.
Okay.
Did anybody catch on after the stories broke that there was a hobby club in Illinois that claimed that one of their balloons was missing?
Yeah. They
had a balloon missing that had GPS tracking on it. And guess where it was when it went offline? Right over Alaska. And they described it as a cylindrical object. So their fear was it was one of their hobbyist balloons that they have, and there's hundreds of these things flying around on any given day. There's weather balloons and there's other things that are up in that atmosphere up flying around on a daily basis that we never hear about. I think the only reason we're hearing about any of this stuff was because of that first balloon, and then everybody was up in arms about what's flying over our skies, and I think it just took off in a direction that now everything that's in the sky is a UFO or UAP. Oh my gosh, we got to shoot it down. And I think everybody was a little trigger happy and it freaked people out when I don't know that. I mean, I can understand the Chinese balloon one because I mean, do we really believe that it wasn't spying or doing anything like that? I mean, think about it. I don't trust that that was just an innocent balloon that was up there tracking weather patterns.
No.
But the thing about that one is it's been happening for years, and no one ever said anything. It's not the first time that spy balloons have been tracked over our skies, and no one ever said anything, or no one ever paid attention to it until now. So,
but if we want to go with the hobbyist balloon theory, I'm not buying that either. So, if we want to say that the hobbyists launched their Mylar balloons, those balloons travel around between 30 and 60,000 feet, which would pose a problem to air travel. That magically now they just realized this, so we have to shoot it down. I'm not buying that. I think that one is convenient because they haven't mentioned anything about the other ones. The interesting thing about the one over Lake Huron is that was octagonal in shape. And if I can go just for a few more minutes, just to throw out, for me, the piece that goes with this whole story is the Tic Tac UFO that was caught in 2004 by Commander Fravor. Everybody should probably go listen to his interviews either on 60 Minutes or on Joe Rogan podcast. See what you think of him for yourself, but he is in the top 20 command of an entire battle group and is the lead person for his squadron. It encounters the Tic Tac in 2004. They get it on radar. Well, they didn't get it on radar because it was actively being jammed, but they have other targeting pods that were able to actually get video of this thing, and the way that he described it sounds a lot like the things that they were just talking about. Cylindrical in shape, relatively small, no known propulsion, you can't see it, and according to him, which again, I believe him because he's a highly qualified person flying a sophisticated piece of equipment with other sophisticated piece of equipment attached to it, and he is seeing eyewitness, and he's able to read the information he gathers from all of his equipment. And he said that right away, as soon as they encountered that Tic Tac, they were told that they had been seeing those for 2 weeks on and off in that area. And that's why they wanted them to go check it out, because they had they were going to be doing a training exercise with the Marines. And since they were there, they decided to send them to check this thing out. Which means if they had seen those in 2004, they didn't need to adjust any radar to see those. They know that they're there. Which leads me to the conclusion, if you want to tie those two things together, we didn't adjust any radar to see slow-moving balloons. If we have to adjust radar at NORAD to pick up slow-moving threats, that's not a good look, and I don't buy it. I think I think these things are being engaged because of the Chinese spy balloon. I think that people saw that, and it was so visual that all of a sudden it turned into, well, there's something else, we have to act. I think that that's short-sighted, but if you listen to Commander Fravor and how he described these things, it sounds a lot like this. And he also said something really interesting, that more on the East Coast, he said that they would report same sightings, but those guys were seeing what they said appears to be a cube shape inside of a clear beach ball.
Okay, I have heard the description before.
So that piqued my interest as soon as I heard about the one over Lake Huron, that was described as octagonal in shape. Because I go, well, that kind of jibes with what he was saying some of the other guys see, is that they're seeing a shape within something else. And it also took them 2 times to shoot down the one over Lake Huron. They just
missed the first one, yep.
They just missed it the first one.
And slow-moving object.
I've heard people say, well, they missed it because a Sidewinder missile is set up to identify heat signature, and it has to be metal, and blah, 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 blah. Fine. How did they hit it with the second one, if that's true? If that piece of equipment is designed to hit a certain thing, and you say they missed it because it's a balloon, well, then they shouldn't be able to hit it the second time. And if you go, well, they got lucky and they practiced with the first, I'm not buying any of that. Whatever is going on up there, they're not going to tell us the full story, and none of it makes sense because they fall over themselves with the web of lies that they tell us. They say it's definitely not aliens. We haven't recovered anything. We don't know what it is, but we know it's not that. And the last thing that I'll leave with, and let you guys jump in, because I've been all over this, because it's the amount of bullshit that is being shoveled in front of us is...
I have to interject. I feel like the DOD is going to be knocking at Brian's door after this podcast comes
Probably.
out.
I'm not sure, Brian, if you're saying that you feel they're UFOs or there's no way in hell they're UFOs.
I'm saying they could be UFOs. I don't believe they're just balloons. That I don't believe. And I don't believe what we're being told. Based off of what Commander Fravor says, it's also interesting that if they've seen these things since 2004 and before that even, and it's known about, we've had educated, trained military personnel and sophisticated equipment see it with their own eyes, see it with their equipment, but they've always just monitored and observed and watched these things. It's interesting to me that we decided to engage not once, not twice, but 3 times. And then when questions are asked of, do we have a new policy that if there's something that is a danger to air travel, are we shooting it down? We don't get an answer. It would stand to reason that if a balloon is at 40,000 feet and it poses a danger to commercial airliners, then that means we have to take everything down that's at that level. And if we don't, then you have to ask the question, why did we do it this time? So yeah, you have the Department of Defense, they come out and say one thing, and they give us conflicting information every time they would try to address it. They're certain it's not aliens, but they don't know what it could possibly be. They don't think it's from another country, but we know that it's not aliens, but we haven't recovered anything and we haven't found it, and we're not interested in looking for it. That's odd. It's very strange. And I don't, like I said, I can't say that they're aliens because nobody can say that, but I definitely don't think that they're balloons. I think that there's something more to what's going on than what they're telling us. And there's just a lot of things that don't add up. Why do we have to use 2 Sidewinder missiles to hit them? Why do you give up a search for something that you have no idea what it is, but you spent a lot of money to take it down, but you're not interested? That doesn't seem right. And this is the part that I wanted to hit on, which is interesting, and it's more just an observation or a feeling about how the sausage is made. The bullshit that they're shoveling to us is like their playbook 101 whenever they don't want it to be something else. It's just a balloon. They did it with Roswell. They've done it throughout time. Project Blue Book, it's a balloon. Just call it a balloon. Now, what's interesting to me is that for a long time, when it comes to Area 51, experimental projects, all of that kind of stuff, the government has been more than happy to let UFOs be a cover story. There's no doubt about that they're very much let people run wild with that stuff because it keeps the heat off of things like, the stealth bomber, the SR-71 Blackbird. That's fine. They're happy with that. It's weird to me that they're not following that same MO now. Just keep going with, we're not sure what it is. Let people speculate all they want to. They've been doing it for years. Why all of a sudden now are they very certain that it's not UFOs? What does it matter if you say that or not? I at least understand when they don't want to tell us and they go, we're not sure what it is. It could be anything. I kind of get that. Let the people just speculate and then it keeps heat off of you. I get more nervous when they give me definitive answers. Like when somebody says, I'm definitely not running for fill in the blank. That means they're going to be running for whatever office they said they weren't. So I get a little bit weirded out when we get bullshitted this way and we're all just supposed to take it. It's weird. I'll leave it at that. It's very, very strange.
And those are incredible points, I must say. Like, there are things I think that we've all been thinking. Who has a follow up to that?
I was kind of thinking when it first broke I had a couple different theories in my head. I don't know that I went the alien route at any point. I went with the route of possibly more spy equipment flying around out there. Like I think I even mentioned this when we were over at your house for your birthday. It's the Chinese thing. Look at the balloon over here, but don't pay attention to what's going on over here type thing. They're trying to misdirect. Maybe someone's trying to misdirect everything, but I don't know that I don't know that it follows that pattern when there's three of them right in a row like that. I mean, is it coincidence? Is it? I don't think they're weather balloons. I don't think they're aliens. I mean, could it possibly be like Brian's talking? Maybe it's more spy stuff from other countries, and we've known about it for years. Why they're not telling us the information? If they were willing to tell us the first balloon thing with the Chinese thing, why aren't they willing to tell us what the other stuff was? I mean, do they truly not know? I mean, they've got to have some idea what it was.
What about even releasing the video footage? Because just recently, like last year, they had that congressional hearing on UFOs. They opened up, they even showed videos from these fighter jets and from, I think, even warships, if I'm not mistaken. But there was lots of video that was taken with their night vision capabilities, showing these UFO or UAPs in the air, which is where they started coining the term UAP. That's what they wanted to move to. So where is the footage for that, for these most recent ones that we shot down? That's what I want to see. And I was looking and I can't find it anywhere. So
that's a question. Yeah,
that's a great point, Gina, because that's always been, like, since this happened, that's one of the things everybody has been saying. To just show us the gun barrel footage of them being shot down and just let us make our own minds up. The footage that was released for the Tic Tac and for the gimbal video, I think that was 2014 maybe, all of that stuff wasn't even classified. Like, it wasn't even ever marked classified when it was released, because it was simply just the targeting pod footage, which is black and white and FLIR. Now, Commander Fravor did say, which was interesting, that with the gimbal footage with that video, that they have the full radar of that video, but he said that you'll never see. He said because that they will not allow the public to see. But the other stuff, there's nothing classified in the actual screen that they can't show us. So they could show us this if they wanted to. They're choosing, like, if you wanted to say it was a hobbyist balloon, then just show us the footage and we can decide if it is or not. What does it matter?
Right.
It's our footage, technically. I mean, if you want to get specific about it.
But the Tic Tac video that you're speaking of, I believe if it's the same video, they couldn't pick it up. They couldn't see it unless they had the infrared on. And that was the only way those fighter pilots could see it and track it.
So for the Tic Tac video, what Commander Fravor said, he said they were able to see it with their eyes, and that one was particularly interesting because he said it was hovering over the water, and they could see something right under the surface of the water that was about the size of a 747, and this Tic Tac object was hovering above it, and eventually, once they started following the Tic Tac, the thing under the water was gone, and the water was smooth again. But he did say that once he tried to get closer to it and see what, he explains it very well about how you have to live in 3 dimensions, and in aviation people forget about up and down. They forget about that direction. So he said when he's trying to descend and kind of get closer to it, he said that it actively jammed their radar, so their radar wouldn't work, which he also said is considered an act of war. But the radar was actively jammed, so they had to use that targeting pod with the FLIR to lock onto it. And once
is this the one that's submerged in the water? Is that the one you're referring to? They followed over the water, and then they eventually lost it, and they believe it went under?
No, this one is from 2004. They found it hovering over the water with something. Commander Fravor tries to engage it just to get a closer look, and he can't get radar lock on it. He said it was actively being jammed. The signal that they get back, they know that it means they're being jammed, what they see. So he tried to get close to it, and it was coming towards him, and then he said it just disappeared. And then they started heading back to their carrier, and they jumped on and said, "You're never going to believe it. That thing is back." And it was now 60 miles in a different direction in just the span of a few seconds. So they went back to engage it, and that's when they were able to get the targeting pod to lock onto it with the FLIR and just the black and white video, and that's where they were able to capture it. I'm not sure.
I believe we're talking about the same thing, but in the video that I seen, they kept shutting on and off the FLIR, and when it was off, you couldn't see it on the screen, but when they turned it on, you could see it.
Yeah, I don't think it's the same one, because they were just cycling through, and the one that he was talking about when he was showing it, they would go from the FLIR, and then his weapons specialist in the back turned it to the black and white camera, just because it gets a closer look. So he was toggling between FLIR and the black and white, but he was only doing that because he felt like they were getting a better look with the black and white camera. And that's where they were seeing all the crazy movements and everything, how it was moving.
I'll have to review it.
Yeah. I suggest everybody goes and checks it out, because it's worth a look, and just to hear somebody who knows what they're talking about, who actually saw something and can validate it, goes kind of a long way for me. I mean, we can talk about a lot of other people that maybe we believe or don't believe, but it's kind of hard not to trust somebody who's in that position, who should know what they're talking about, especially when it comes to avionics. I believe when people say that stuff. But I'll say, too, when, Gina, you were talking about the one when it went over Montana, and they closed down airspace for a little bit with that, they initially said with that, because we were glued to the news watching, that they reopened the airspace because there was no potential threat. It was a glitch in the system. Is what
probably glitch. See, I was told that, well, not told, but like I read, I know we're all watching different things, that like it disappeared, like they went up there and they couldn't find it. And so then everybody was making fun of the fact, like, how you have all this equipment, how come you can't find it in the dark? Like you have night vision stuff, but it had like disappeared from the radar as well. So then, yeah, I do vaguely remember them saying, oh, it must have just been a glitch, but then it showed up. And the reason that they believed that it was the same one was because of the signature, or some way that it was displaying on the radar was identical to what it was the night before in Montana, which is why they believe it's the same object, because of the signature. So I don't know how these radars work, or if each thing has its own individual like signature that comes back to it, that basically gives it a name, so you can, like an IP address, basically, that's specifically for that. So but that's how they were saying it was the same one. So I don't know how they identify that, though. But I know it made for an exciting birthday for me. I mean, we had the Super Bowl and we're watching UFOs at the same time. It was just insane.
Gina's ready to drop everything, go get some canned food. She was losing it. She was like, I told you we should get a Sam's Club card.
Sam's Club card. Oh, God.
And I was like, I told you we should have got those shells and those extra canned goods.
But to Brian's point, what I can't wrap my head around is, like, I didn't think about it this way before, but it's like he spent so much money to shoot this down. Just, I mean, there's probably tons of money thrown at it in all different directions. The search party, putting the people up there in the first place. I'm imagining just shooting off a missile like that is probably thousands and thousands of dollars. Just, and to afford, okay, we can afford to miss once and try it again. You know what I mean? So you got all this money that you're pouring into it. Granted, I don't think necessarily that the military is shy about where they put their money and don't care what happens to it. But the point being is, like, well, we don't really care anymore. I don't know about. Yeah, I didn't really do a lot of research like today. I did my research when it was going on, but I have. I mean, are there any even new articles about it?
Nobody's this guy disappeared.
This was a week and a half ago, and nobody's talking about it. Nobody's talking about it.
Just as fast as it appeared, it disappeared.
And that was one of the crazy things I was thinking about too, Kez, because when I went searching for different, perspectives, different news stories, different facts, it's like it just stopped. And I believe wholeheartedly that they know exactly what those things are. And if they really wanted to get the remains of whatever that is, they could do that. They're smart people. They don't want the remains. They blew them up on purpose so that there were no remains, is what I think.
Right. Either there is nothing, right? Because they kind of knew what it was and they're just like, nah, screw it. We don't need the recovery. Or they have it and they don't want anybody to know they have it because they don't want to have to explain more of what it is. And if you want to get, conspiracy theory about it, again, there's hundreds of thousands of news outlets, right? Newspapers, radio, TV, all these things that we have access to, and not a single one is saying anything about it. Not a single one. I don't think that they got disinterested. You know what I mean? So who's telling them not to do it?
I mean,
who's saying the trains are more important now? Suddenly the trains are important.
It's interesting. Yeah. It's interesting, to Kez's point. People need to understand the gravity of the situation that happened. Since the birth of NORAD, since the whole idea of NORAD was put into place, this has never happened. They have never shot down anything in United States airspace. Now we're up to 4 things, and 3 of them were just 2 days in a row, 3 days in a row.
Yeah.
Like that, it's unprecedented that had happened. So to have the attitude now that the news cycle is just moved to something else and just forget about it, to me, it is wild. And all that does is beg more questions of what actually was going on. I'm glad Rob's wearing his tinfoil hat. Actually, his tinfoil fez, which, again, it's lit. That is so tight. I'm so jealous. That if you really want to get crazy out there left field with speculation and theories, it popped into my head one day. Why aren't they showing us the video and the footage of what they saw up there? How do we know they hit anything at all? We have no idea if they actually even hit anything.
That is part of why I don't believe any of it. And we have no proof that they even set out fighter jets.
That's true. That's horribly true, Rob. Yep.
And I love UFOs. I love paranormal. I mean, I love the whole UFOlogy. And I would love to think there was aliens and they shot something down, but I think the whole thing's BS. I think they probably got the Chinese spy balloon. I'm sure that may have happened, but I don't.
It's the only one we have photographic evidence of.
No, you're right. But here's the thing: is the government will not tell you they engaged a UFO if they really did. They will never tell you. They didn't have to tell us about any of it. There's no way. And at the same time, I think about this. If aliens made it here, with all that high tech, they're going to just get shot down by a couple of our primitive missiles?
Hey, yo!
I don't, and so I just don't believe it, okay? I always believe, like, the bait and switch. The government will make you focus on something while something else is going on. February 3rd, the train derailed in Ohio, okay? Releasing toxic fumes. It got into the water. They didn't send out any kind of rescue or anything right away. We didn't even get the first reports till after the UFO situation. So I don't know if that was the bait and switch for it, but they were trying to get us, I feel, they were trying to get us to not look at something else.
How many times has that happened in recent years with everything else going on? It seems like every time something happens, something else happens that seems to be the new headline to direct you away from whatever was just going on.
Right. So that's part of the thing, and I don't mean to insult people, but I think the masses are sometimes easily manipulated. Because do you remember back when Obama was the president and everybody was concerned because they were going to have to pay for YouTube and Facebook and every individual thing on the internet, and everybody was up in arms for a couple weeks about that? No?
I do vaguely remember that.
Vaguely, yeah.
Yes. And so while everybody was concerned about that, they were voting on giving the president more power if the, martial law. But nobody was concerned about that or really knew about it because, they thought something was going to happen that they could never make happen as it was. So I feel that the train derailment might have had had something to do with it. I don't think the government would tell us. Just, even going back to like War of the Worlds in 1938 when they did the radio show, and it caused chaos and rioting and suicides, and now we got preppers, and we still have the same issues we would have back then, but maybe more amplified because people want to riot for whatever reason. And I watched some videos and I read some stuff, and a lot of stuff went to Project Bluebeam, where they were making it sound like, oh yeah, well now here's some more stuff related to Project Bluebeam. But as I tried to read into Project Bluebeam, it seems that pretty much all that came from this Serge, I'm not even sure how to say it, Monast, all came from him. I also feel that maybe it didn't work as much because not a lot of people were concerned or interested that I knew or that weren't into any kind of paranormal or ufology. Maybe, fear is big business. So maybe they were trying to scare us for some reason. I don't know. And that was part of the whole Project Bluebeam thing. I just also think that with the military tech that they have, and military tech is going to be far more advanced than what we know, that they couldn't identify a balloon. Okay, and maybe, Brian, as they might have missed it the first time, because as you said, heat and metal, and well, if it's a balloon, it's not going to be heat or metal, and maybe the second shot was a direct hit. But then again, we don't know. They sent anything off, and they never had to tell us any of this. They never had to give us any of this information. But still they did, and I feel that's the wonkiest part of the whole thing.
Who's the modern day Nostradamus that predicted aliens would present themselves in 2023?
Oh, what's that name? Oh, hang on.
I think it was Rich.
Oh,
right.
Okay.
Right, but I just don't think they'd be shot down that easy is the other part of that. Right. So the only thing that makes me actually feel like, oh, maybe they are aliens, is that they gave up on the debris right away. But on the other hand, maybe there's just no debris to look for.
Yeah, maybe there's nothing to look for, like you said.
There's nothing there because they were like, oh, aliens, but nah, we don't care. So if they really thought it was aliens, they wouldn't give up. But that could be the misinformation part of it. And then I always think of like Richard Doughty, who was part of the CIA, who was like a whistleblower, but he also admitted several times that he was part of the whole UFO disinformation campaign to feed to the masses. So he would make it sound like, oh, aliens, and leaked all this stuff, and it's kind of a bait and switch part of the government as well. So that's kind of my theory on this whole thing, is I can't buy it. I don't think they would give us that information.
Right. So what end, basically? To what end? Like,
right. Why would they tell us? It would cause widespread panic. Why would it be so easy to shoot down some aliens? They never tell us. Somebody else has to point it out. Well, we saw some lights, or this UFO crashed in my field. Oh, then it's a balloon. They never just say, hey, there's a big giant UFO flying over. Everybody check it out.
Right.
Well, that's kind of the interesting thing to Rob's point. You're hitting on a lot of the points that are contradictory to what they tell us, but you could blow holes in a lot of it. So it's either they're lying about the whole thing or they're lying about individual pieces within the story. For me, when I'm watching how the events play out, we have a Chinese balloon. There's no doubts about this one. Everybody can see it. People on the ground saw it. It had to be reported on because you can't say it's not there because everybody can take out their phone and take a picture. It gets shot. It goes across the whole country. It gets shot down. Not going to say that the press wasn't necessarily great about saying what a great job that was to do that. There was a lot of questions that were being asked that had a lot of scrutiny on what the government's doing with it right now. So if you say you get all of this scrutiny for the Chinese balloon, to me, all of this seems like somebody got out over their skis with whatever they were trying to do with this, and it just got out of control, and people just lost control of what they were doing. Whether it was an overreaction that people aren't happy that the Chinese balloon went all the way across the country, shoot something else down that we know is up there, and then we can say, look, see, hoorah, America, we shot it down right away.
USA.
But it seems like if that was the plan, everybody is very unprepared for what they were doing. Like, I'm all about them, feeding us a line, but to have as many people who were immediately talking, who were involved in what happened, be part
Governor
of
of Alaska, Governor of Montana.
Right, the head of NORAD.
The Canadian government was involved at one point, right? Because they said they tracked her up.
Trudeau came on
right.
So
yeah, right.
So, like, there's one thing when it gets to conspiracy theories like that, especially with the government. The government's really, really good at, like, one thing, and that's getting money from us. Like, that's the one thing they're very, very good at. They're mildly incompetent with everything else, and I could never believe that they're competent enough and cagey enough and stealthy enough to be able to have this many people involved on a mass cover-up of something. I feel like there may be a couple people somewhere that had an idea of what they wanted to do, but everybody is super ill-prepared for dealing with this situation. Nobody had good answers. There was conflicting information from the people who were on site. And if we really want to say we shot down weather balloons, which, again, the weather balloon bullshit drives me nuts. I can't stand the balloon thing. Like, that's ridiculous. So if I go to Party City and I get a Mylar balloon and I let it go, we launch F-22 Raptors, the most baddest ass plane on the planet, to go up there with a highly trained person and a highly sophisticated aircraft with instruments that I can't even fathom how they can even make those, but people are trained to use them and they're very precise, and we're shooting down balloons? That's a bad look, everybody. I just don't buy that that's what we would do.
But if we're shooting down high-tech alien, vehicles, I mean, I can't accept that either. That alien tech, and to get from a billion light years away to here, we're just going to shoot them out of the sky. Because we haven't been able to do that forever, and now all of a sudden they're just like, we're popping them. They're just falling down.
Which is why I present the idea of we may have tried to shoot them down, and we didn't. And they tried it with the first one and went, oh shit. Then they tried it with the second one and went, we missed it. Fire another missile at it. Uh-oh. This is why we're not. So to me, if it is aliens and with all of their whatever technology they have, I can see us either not hitting it and panicking because we didn't, or thinking we hit it and still having the same amount of, yeah, we hit it, we can't find anything. But to me, if it is aliens, I don't believe that they just got shot down. But I think that I think there's more to it. I don't think it's any other country's stuff. I just don't believe that they have anything like that, and I just don't believe that it's just a balloon. That's almost insulting to the pilots of those jets for us to say it's just a balloon. Like, to me, that just is unfathomable.
Well, I kind of like where you guys are kind of going. Rob, you had said before, you're like, well, maybe this whole hysteria over these UFOs was a cover up for something else. And I had thought about that before with the whole like train thing, even going back to that, I didn't think that we were covering up the train thing. I thought the train thing was covering up the UFO thing. So I thought it opposite. But then you had said,
that's interesting.
The UFO, we've got these, maybe it never even happened, right? Well, I'm thinking if it didn't happen, and it was, let's say, dreamed up by the government, they did a real poor job of executing this fallacy, right? You would think if they're trying to cover something up, they're going to have it thought out a little bit more. They're not going to have a bunch of people in power talking about 40 different things, right? They're going to kind of stick to the same script, the same story. Everybody's going to be on the same page. So if this was intended to be a cover up of something else, they definitely did not talk about it, execute it right.
Well, the train thing happened on the 3rd, and the first UFO or the Chinese spy balloon was the 4th.
Sure. And I'm not saying that the train thing, came afterwards. What I'm saying is they said, "Oh, quick, go focus on that now." Like it was kind of like a convenient happening at the time. It was like, all right, turn around, go focus on that.
I'm not saying that's necessarily it, but it didn't even make the news.
Right.
And I think a couple things here that I think Jenny and Rich want to talk to you because I keep feeling like I'm like interrupting everybody. But a couple things I want to bring in. Jenny, first of all, for you, yes, Baba Vanga was her name. It was she's now passed, and Rich actually I think had talked about her in one of our Weird Weekly News episodes where she was talking about these predictions. So the prediction for 2023 from this Baba Vanga said that we were going to see like nuclear war. Hang on, I think I have it here. It was like nuclear threats, environmental disasters, alien invasions, and lab-grown humans were all supposed to be happening in 2023. And that was just a small amount of the things that she had predicted for 2023.
Now, 500 so far.
Well, it's easy for the government to get a hold of that list and start making things up then.
Right.
So what's next on the list?
You can Google it.
Well, if you make enough predictions, eventually some of them are going to come
true. So as far as conspiracy goes, I'm going to fill in our listeners on a couple of these things. So we have this Baba Vanga thing. So you have people that are really into psychic predictions that are going to talk about these things. They're going to connect those dots, right? So you have those. You also have people that at the same time, on the night this stuff was going on in Montana, on TikTok, there were people that were live on TikTok because I watched them, but then you don't have access to these live videos afterwards. There was an object up in the sky in Montana that was this round ball, like glowing ball. Now, mind you, in the past few months, we've had a lot of reports, even over Las Vegas. They had those videos that were taking place over the nightclub in Las Vegas with those spheres, these like silver spheres that were in the sky. So there we have that. So we have like these long trail of things in the recent months, not just in the month of February. So we go back 5-6 months. There was a lot of stuff going on in Vegas and in other areas of the world. Now, it wasn't just the United States that was saying that they had these things, because at the same time that we're shooting down things over here, you had China that was saying that they had found something in the Shandong province. It was on that Sunday, on February 12th, in East China, and it was like the local maritime authorities there had said that there was an object that was in the sky that they were going to shoot down, and they were sending messages out to fishermen to be careful because they were probably going to be shooting down this object over the sky. Can't find anything else about it since then, but those were the things that happened. Then rewind just a little bit, because we talked about it in a Weird Weekly News recently, that Russia in January had supposedly shot down on January 3rd that it was like some kind of, I think, news story that came out, and the Kremlin made announcement that they had shot down this UFO. And it says that the decision was taken to liquidate a ball-shaped object that was flying at an altitude estimate at 1.5 miles above the village of Sultan Sali in Russia's Rostov region. So now that happened in January. Now, so we have all these things going on, and then these metaphysical, paranormal things that people are tying together. And then you have the other side of conspiracy theorists that are talking about like the train derailments and all these other things. One, like, okay, we want to take focus off the train derailments. And then people started saying, oh, they're blowing up the trains, not to get on a whole nother subject. But what people aren't talking about is take a look at how many train derailments happen in a year. I mean, just in 2022 alone, I think there was 1,100 train derailments.
Yeah.
Back in the Obama administration, they were trying to pass the law, or they did pass a law to where the braking system had to be updated. And then the next administration, when they were cutting some fat to reroute some money to different ways, decided to take money and funding away from the safety with the train system. And so then all these trains didn't get updated, so they still have faulty brakes. And now, 2022, over 1,100 train derailments in the United States. But we weren't talking about those. We're always going to talk about the ones that are big, and then you're going to notice the things that happen in succession. Just like we see one thing in the sky, and now for a few days, we're going to see a million things in the sky, right?
Yep.
Then on top of it, you have the people, how you talked about, they bring up certain things. Rob, you talked about how they brought up something that was going on, and then in the meantime they're passing a law to give the president presidential power for martial law. So there's a lot of legislation that's going on here in the United States that they're trying to take the focus off of it, and some of it is very serious human rights issues that we're looking at that people don't realize are going on. And so there are some people saying like they're just using this as a cover-up so they can pass some of these laws and slide in there and do all these things. So I mean, we're talking about theories that are all across the board, right? And so it's like, what are we left to believe? What are we left to think? To your point, Rob, why are they even telling us? They could have just done this shit and not even bothered to say anything to anybody. So what the fuck was the point, right? So I mean, that's kind of where we're at. There was just this giant casserole, horrible casserole made of all the leftover ingredients, like just shoved in a pot in the last couple months, and now we're all kind of choking on it because it smells and tastes like shit. Like it doesn't matter.
That's true, and I still just can't wrap my mind around, well, these aliens are here and they're going to take over the world, but we don't have to worry about it because they're really easy to shoot down. They're super easy to shoot down, and we've got nothing to worry about. But it's really hard to find information on Project Bluebeam. But the reason why people are bringing it up in videos is because the succession of the way things are supposed to unfold is kind of happening. And there's no like the guy that I said, the Serge Monast or whatever his name is, I can't pronounce it right, I'm sure I'm butchering his last name, is like there's no real, he's not like claiming to have gotten this information from some document from the government. It's just like some theory, and then they believe that he got some of his theory from Star Trek episodes. But the way it's going is like interesting in that direction, because some of the thing to bring this new world order is to have a fake and alien invasion.
Yeah, I remember one of the articles that I read was a guy who was talking about how these aliens have been here for a really long time and they come in peace, and now we done shot them down and we're going to piss them off. I was like, oh, okay.
I did hear that too. Yeah, Jenny, you bring up a good point.
I was like, yeah, to your point, Rob, I doubt that we're just going to shoot them down if they're truly aliens, if they're truly super beings that have got this technology that we can't even touch or figure out or even find reality in it, but we can shoot them down. I agree.
What if they're nice guys? We'll never find out because we killed them.
They come in peace.
Tried to kill them.
Well,
we don't have any proof they shot anything down.
We don't have proof there was anything there to shoot.
Right.
What if, let's go with the theory it is aliens, right? And we're overzealous and we're like, hell yeah, these things are in the air. Let's go shoot them down. And then, like you said, Rob, we have an oh shit moment. They're not going down. We don't know what the fuck we're doing. And then so let's just quietly pretend it never happened. because we're like, oh fuck, like, you know what I mean? Like, we're all excited, like, yeah, this shit's in the air, we're shooting it down, let's go, let's do this, and then they're like shooting shit at it, they're like, oh, this is not what I thought was gonna happen, and so
right?
they just quietly fizzle out. They're like,
the
oh
day the
shit,
Earth stood still, right? Anybody ever watch that?
Yes.
Shot the one guy, and the rest of them kicked our ass, right?
So maybe, you know, maybe it all is real and it wasn't fabricated, but they thought that this was going to be a quick deal, and then they went, oh, we don't know what we're messing with all of a sudden, so let's just pretend and
it never
make
happened.
It go away.
Let's just stop. Let's not talk about it anymore.
Exactly. That was somebody got overzealous and went, oops. we actually don't know how to take these things down. So we just can't find it. Haha.
I honestly think it was a reaction to seem, I don't want to say bravado, but to try to get a news cycle that's on your side because you got hammered about one balloon, that the decision was made, like, shoot something else down, and then that way we're going to get on to a good news cycle that look how proactive we were. The only problem is that whatever that order that was given to NORAD, that it's at their discretion if something is danger or not to take it down. It happened 2 more times, and then I think people started to freak out that, well, what are we going to, because nobody could answer questions about it. Like, right. We can know for sure if we're saying that we recalibrated radar to be able to detect these objects, and these objects, because of their altitude, posed a threat, well, then that would stand to reason we have to keep doing it. So if we don't, they're lying about something. That is the only thing that makes sense with that. Either it was a threat, and it could just be junk up there. Well, then we're going to be shooting down a lot of junk if it poses a threat. If we don't, and everything just goes away and shuts up, then why'd you have to shoot these down? If it's a threat, it's a threat. You don't discern between one or the other. But that's because of the bullshit.
I know also the altitude was the altitude that passenger jets fly at, so that was part of the threat.
Right. Well, that they say that's part of the threat is the altitude. That's kind of my point. If this junk was, or balloons or junk or whatever they want to call it, was within commercial airline flight, that means that happened 2 days in a row or 3 days in a row where we just happen to find stuff now. Either that's a crazy coincidence that shit's just flying together now, or this is just balloons and junk and it's all over the place up there. That means you have to shoot it all down. If it's all going to be at that altitude and there's so much of it, you have to take action against it. If you don't take any more action from this point forward, then the other stuff couldn't have been a threat. Like, you can't, both things can't be true. It's one or the other. Either stuff is a threat at a certain altitude and it has to be dealt with, or it doesn't. There is no in between.
I agree.
I mean, that makes sense.
People were pissed off anyway at how long, like, some people were pissed off at how long it took them to shoot down the Chinese balloon, and we were reassured that it was being observed and watched. So I'm not going to make that judgment call. I don't know what goes into that. I'm going to trust, even though we have a right to be skeptical about our government, I'm going to trust that if they say they're observing it and trying to analyze it and trying to find the safest place to bring it down, because it wasn't posing some sort of threat. I mean, a lot of people were like, oh, look at this stuff, and I don't want to make this about the balloon, but they're able to get, stuff. Well, there's shit they can get from the satellite. The satellite pictures, I mean, I feel like they could see the nose hairs in my nose. Turn my head up to the sky because the pictures are so good. So I don't think they needed a balloon to come fly into our space, get these things, but I digress. It's not about that. But Rich, what is your whole thoughts on this thing?
Oh, I don't even know anymore. My head's spinning.
Right.
I don't know. I mean,
we're doing our job, Rob.
Yes, excellent.
Guys,
I
mean, I kind of explained what I thought it was when we started, right? What I thought it is, but after listening to Brian and Rob, they bring up some good points that I guess I didn't wrap my head around, and I'm almost. I wasn't thinking about the fact that how do we know they did anything at all? Maybe I'm just too trusting and I believe everything that I believe when they tell me something.
Don't
and
trust
I guess
the government.
I guess I'm watching the news like everybody else, and I'm not really believing it. I'm not believing it to the point where I think there's any type of threat. But I guess I didn't wrap my head around it and think deep enough to the fact of, well, prove it, you know. And I mean, I hate to say it, but I agree with these guys. I'm not, or for sure, Rob, I agree with. No offense, Brian, but I don't think they did anything. I think it was just a hoax or whatever. You know, they said they did it, and there was nothing going on.
Well, I'd like to go around and ask
until they show me differently. I guess you know, I'm going to go that route only because I think it stems back to what I started saying. The Chinese balloon thing was real, and it's look at this thing, and then something else is going on, and it's probably more on the lines like Brian said. You know, hey, we need to save face. We better do something and prove to people that we're not just letting these things happen. Yes. And it get out of control. But did they really shoot anything down the second time? We don't have proof of that, and maybe they didn't.
Or you know? So I want to go around. Let's just go around the table then before we tie this up. And I'm going to ask you guys a question. Do we think this was possibly extraterrestrial at all? Yes, no, maybe. How about that? Jenny, start with you.
I'm going to say maybe, because I believe that we had stuff in our airspace, and whether that's alien, not alien, it's difficult to say, but I think our government knows a whole hell of a lot more about it than they're letting on. And I do believe that there are aerial phenomenon, unidentified aerial phenomenon things happening all the time. And whether or not they're picking when they're paying attention, making up stories, it's hard for me to say. I really don't know.
So in taking a look at any of the things, Jenny, before you came on tonight, was there anything that didn't get covered that you wanted to give some final comments on?
No, I was pretty interested in the modern day Notre Dame and curious if anyone else had heard other types of kind of bizarre, more really far out there things for us to entertain. But no, I think we've covered a good part of it. I'd heard most of what everyone else talked about, and I was also really surprised that the conversation just stopped. And there's a reason for that. I mean, it was so hot, and then all of a sudden.
So I'm going to pose the question to you then, Kez. What about you? What do you think?
Oh, hell yeah, it's aliens.
Oh
yeah.
Are you really saying that, or are you just saying that to be like?
No. So I had, initially I was like, yeah, that could be aliens, and then I was like, it could be an active war, and then I was like, I don't know what the heck's going on, right? And then it went quiet, and then I stopped caring. Well, hearing the different perspectives, particularly about money, particularly about disinterest in recovery, and particularly about, did it even happen at all, or like how could you shoot down an alien spaceship that came from billions of light years away? You really think it's going to be that simple? So hearing all those sides that I really didn't think about before, I'm going to go with hell yeah, it's aliens. They saw it. They saw it for whatever reason. I know, because NORAD was updated because of the balloon. They started looking for it more often. Whatever it is, they identified it, and they go, oh shit, let's shoot this shit down. And then they tried and they couldn't. And so then they're like low key, like, oh, we don't need to go look for anything. We don't care. It's fine. Because they tried and they couldn't do it, and they're embarrassed and they don't know what it was. And instead of saying, oh, we failed to identify it, and we failed to shoot it down, and we failed to do all this stuff, they're just going to low key be like, oh, okay. Yeah, it's down. We're disinterested. Bye. So I believe, to both Rob and Brian's point, like in that sense, there's more going on why they're suddenly disinterested in it. And with Rob, like, no, I don't think that they actually shot anything down. I think that maybe they tried and then had an oh shit moment. And so yeah, it's aliens. 100%.
All right, I'm gonna hit over to you, Brian. What about you? Yes, no, maybe.
I am between maybe in hell yeah, it's aliens is where I'm at. I tend to believe that in UFOs and that stuff, I'm pretty hard on that side of it, only because the information that we get now is so much different than it used to be. And when you get people again like Commander Fravor, I can't discredit what somebody like that is saying. It doesn't mean that it's from outer space, but what it does mean is that, particularly for like the Tic Tac and those types of objects, it's stuff that can't move the way it's supposed to move, and we don't have that, which means nobody else can have stuff like that, which poses a lot of questions. I think, one, I want to give a shout out to a coworker. He had a theory, so I'll drop this little nugget. We don't have to expand on it. However, I think it's interesting. His thing was that the China balloon was all a cover from our government to have an impetus to shoot down the other things that they've been noticing. They wanted a reason to be able to try to shoot these things down. I thought that was a super interesting theory. So Joe, that one's
that's a cool story. That's a cool.
I like that a lot.
I was looking for.
China was too pissed that we shot it down, though.
That's it, man. That's it right there.
That's good. But I will kind of. I just heard on another interview yesterday, there was a physicist, and this person had a really interesting idea for aliens that I never really thought of. And he said that whenever we study something, whether it's, alligators, ants, insects, polar bears, whatever it is that we decide that we're going to study, one of the first things we do is we immediately assume we're more intelligent and we're smarter than the thing that we're studying. And then we do a couple of other things every single time. We start to hide ourselves and cloak ourselves while we're watching so the thing can't see us. We also, will make fake environments for those things to be in just so we can kind of control what's going on. That's how we look at other things and watch them and study them. So he said it would stand to reason, if there's aliens or extraterrestrials, wouldn't they kind of have those same ideas? We're smarter than these things. We're watching, but we're going to try to hide like if you ever go, if somebody is duck hunting, they hide in a blind because they assume they're smarter than the duck, and the duck can't see me, so I'm good. So there could be something watching us that's just past view that we can't see. And I said, that's super interesting, and I didn't think of this until Kez was talking about the train derailment, the timing of it when Rob says, well, it's February 3rd when the train derails. Maybe they are watching. Maybe the train derailment was enough to pick up some feelers to say, let's throw some things out and kind of take a look at what's going on with these humans now over here. That may be an event enough to pique some interest over our airspace from people who may just be watching from beyond something that we can't see.
That's a scary notion. I'm going to switch over to you, Rob. What do you think? Yes, no, maybe.
So what I think is, I love UFOlogy, or is it ufology? Either way, I love that. And I do believe that there's a lot of truth to what has happened in the past and maybe currently. NORAD is controlled by the government. Nobody had to tell us anything. We already know that members of the government have come forward and told us, yes, there are aliens. And then later we've gotten that they have put disinformation out there from government officials. So I just still don't think that, even when, Brian, you were saying that, maybe they think they were smarter. Well, I think they probably popped through a wormhole to get here.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Mm-hmm. I would think that if they were developing technology and we were developing technology, they would always be one step ahead of us.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So that's just my opinion. I want to believe it. I hear what we had today, maybe. But I think overall, I just don't think this situation was real.
Oh well, I'm kind of leaning towards the same thing, and in the sense that I don't know truly what happened. I don't know if anything really did happen. I don't know if they were trying to divert our attention from something. But there's a part of me that believes that some of this is legit. We got so excited and ahead of ourselves, or maybe there was some footage out there that they thought was going to get out, or something that was going to get out and they weren't going to be able to cover this up enough, so they have to admit that it's real. Or again, like, Kez was saying, like, and Brian was saying, they tried to shoot and fire and they missed, and are they supposed to admit that we're ill-equipped to deal with this kind of problem? Like, what government wants to admit that? So I don't know. I'm a mixed bag with it. I believe that alien life forms exist. I 100% believe in it. I 100% believe that there's things in the sky, like Jenny said, that we can't explain, that are here, that are visiting us. I will stand by that. I don't have proof, but I just feel like it would only stand to reason that that's a thing. And this whole like cloaking thing and watching us from a safe distance and kind of like observing us, that blows my mind, because I think that's highly likely. So Rich, yes, no, maybe, final thoughts?
Nope.
You don't think it had anything to do with extraterrestrials?
This incident, I don't believe, has anything to do with any type of alien activity.
Okay.
First of all, why would they want to come here? This place is a fucking hot mess.
Yeah.
I don't believe that.
If they're paying any attention to anything down here over the last few years, I wouldn't want to come here.
Whoa, Rich, you're an auto racing fan.
What's that got to do with anything?
How many times during the Daytona 500 did you say, "Is it the big one? Did the big one happen yet?" You had to have said it.
No, I didn't.
How many? Okay, gonna make me do this. Okay, who else said, "Did the big one happen?"
Nobody. It was just me and Mike.
You're crapping all over my point. Okay.
You mean in the general scheme of the population?
I'm just talking about an auto racing. What's the most entertaining part is when the big crash happens. Yeah. We watch. What happens when we're driving down the road? Yeah. Something happens, everybody's watching. The hot mess?
Yeah.
Good reason to be watching us.
Maybe, but I don't think this instance was that. If we're strictly talking about this incident with these objects, I don't think this was anything to do with any type of. My thought is it's not anything alien related. I think it was a hoax. I think it was something. It was a sleight of hand. It was something being portrayed for us to think that it was something else. Whether it was to create, like Rob said earlier, create fear, draw interest. I don't know what the goal was there, but I don't know that at any point in this whole thing my mind went to aliens, except maybe when they first said UFO. Whenever they say UFO, first thing everybody goes to is little green men. But after they started saying,
gray men,
well, it was this, it was here, it was this thing, I went, that's not aliens. Because like first of all, we're not going to how we shot it down. I don't know that advanced civilization is going to bow down to our fighter jets. I think that it's Independence Day, so.
Well,
my short answer, no, I don't think this instance was. I do believe there's aliens. I do believe in extraterrestrial. Don't hang me and shoot me, down dead here. I'm not trying to shoot at anybody else's thoughts. I just don't think this instance was that. I mean, maybe I'll be proven wrong and something else will come out of it. But with as quick as it all happened and as quick as it all stopped, I don't know that we're ever going to hear anything about it. So we could speculate all we want, and it doesn't mean I'm right or wrong or any of us are. I mean, I think we had a good discussion, and there was a lot of good valid points. And I mean, like I said, when I came on, I was going one direction, and now I went a different direction after hearing other thoughts because my mind wasn't thinking that. So, I mean, I'm glad we had the discussion because now I think I'm thinking about it a little bit differently,
Yeah, it's an awful tasting casserole, that's for sure.
It is. It is shit casserole.
But that, I don't want to dwell on the whole train derailment, but there was a lot of issues that were not reported in the news, but were reported by the residents of Ohio, fish dying in rivers and people feeling sick, and nothing, nobody, no response team was sent out right away. And so it's a really interesting read, and you should check it out.
Yeah, and we definitely, like, I can't wait till we, you know, are able to sit down for a couple episodes and talk about some big conspiracies that have happened in the last couple of years and talk about those and get opinions on it. But good work, good talk tonight, everybody. So for those of you listening, if you have opinions, by all means, send it to us. We want to hear about it. If you have any other facts, you're from those areas, you happen to see something in the skies, hit us up, connectedrealm@gmail.com. connectedrealm@gmail.com. You can find us pretty much anywhere where you get podcasts. We have our YouTube channel, we have Facebook, Instagram, all that good stuff. So anything that we talked about, any articles we found it from, you'll find those links to those websites in the show notes. We will make sure we provide that for you, and we'd love to get some feedback. So thank you everyone for listening. And thank you guys for all showing up during our break. We were on a hiatus, enjoying our time off, and you guys all came together to do this. So thank you guys as well for
thank you.
Yay.
It's good to see everybody. Can't wait for the season to start.
Yeah. Oh, and just a high note is we are investigating an undisclosed location.
The realm's first official investigation.
The realm's first official investigation.
All right.
What was it? It was Realm Investigation. What was it?
I don't know.
Investigative Paranormal.
Oh no! Oh, you had to come
it was the Realm Paranormal Investigation Department.
Oh, you came up with a better word for the D. I can't remember what it was.
Wait, Rick?
The D.
R.I.P.
RP. It was Racine.
RPID.
Yeah, whatever.
Oh.
But I wish we could.
Terrible movie. Don't watch it.
Yeah, if we could come up with something a little better. We'll figure it out, though. But it's our first official investigation stage.
Extraterrestrial, alien.
Maybe we should
get an I in there somewhere.
Yeah, if we could have it R.I., like if we could figure out R.I.P.D., we could be ripped. Like, but I don't know.
Like
really exciting, adventurous.
Yeah, go Busty.
We're gonna figure it out. We got this. So believe in us. Until next time, everybody. Ciao.
Peace out.
Ciao.
Bye.